Welcome to Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. My name is Karen Ward, and I'm your host. I am also an advanced personality trainer, speaker, and the author of the book, Coupled for Life Overcoming Personality Differences in Marriage. This channel is dedicated to helping you understand your personalities and build stronger, healthier relationships. I'm so excited tonight. We have a really serious topic tonight. So it's not as much fun and that kind of thing, but we're going to have some great conversation and we're going to talk about things, some things you may not recognize if you've never been to my channel before or heard me speak before, but we're going to have some terms that are going to be mentioned, like there'll be personality styles, and they are sanguine, choleric, melancholy, and phlegmatic. And so if you don't know anything about those terms, you can tune in on my first interview where I give a brief overview of those personality styles, or you can go to my website, beyond2llc.com, which is BEYONDTWOLLC.com. Yeah, because don't know how to spell beyond. How about that? Again, it's BEYONDTWOLLC.com, beyond2llc.com. You can also purchase a personality assessment so you can understand your own personality and be able to start working on your personality and the relationships you have with others. So tonight, I'm excited. We're going to talk about tonight, we're going to really kind of dig deep into the intricate connection between personalities, bullying, and mental health. I want you to join us tonight. I want you to sit back and even join in the conversation as we explore the fascinating dynamics between our individual traits, our experiences with bullying, and the impact on our mental health. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest. My guest is Bryant Linda, who is a San Francisco Bay Area evangelist. She's also a self-published author and poet. I love poets. Of some of the best-selling titles, which are Poetry in Infancy, Seducing Heart, Poetry in Infancy, Revealing Heart, and Poetry in Infancy, Philosophy of Confessions. Hello. Her writing journey began as a way to heal her own brokenness and to share the song in her heart with the world. Hallelujah. Guided by adoration, love, and trust in the Lord, Linda's autobiographical poetic contributions delve into the depths of her soul, revealing the power of God's love amidst life's storms. Yes. Alongside her passion for writing, Linda is a certified master life coach and an emotional intelligence consultant specializing in bullying prevention. How many of y'all know we need that these days? Driven by a deep empathy for the emotional and mental scars caused by bullying, Linda advocates for safe environments and promotes awareness, education, and prevention through state and federal anti-bullying legislation. Her efforts aim to shed light on the damaging effects of hostile environments and their impact on mental health, striving for fairness, equality, and well-being of employees and students. Linda's voice serves as a beacon of awareness, combating the alarming rates of suicide linked to bullying. Welcome to Personality Speaking, Linda. Thank you for showing up for me.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here tonight, and I pray that we are able to really shed a light on this important topic, because I think it's a very important topic. So the first question I have for you is, how would you define bullying?
So bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior from one person to another person. It's either repeated. Sometimes you can be bullied one time, but it's usually a repeated pattern. And it's always unwanted, and it's aggressive behavior. I believe sometimes with bullying, we look at the who that we fail to look at the what. It's behavior based. So it's those behaviors that are unwanted and they're aggressive towards someone else.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's important to know. When I think of bullying, normally I think of a child, right? You have your kids in school and they come home and so is picking on me. So-and-so keeps telling me I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. So I think of that as children. Can it be outside the child's realm?
Oh, absolutely. Some of the most aggressive bullying is in corporate America. Usually, where people suffer injuries. There's a power imbalance. The person is seeking for power, to have power over someone else, and there's various ways that it could be done. But it's usually right behind the boardroom, and it's in corporate America, and people suffer injuries.
Wow, I never really thought about it that way. I think, in my mind, I look at that as more harassment. I really never thought that's bullying. I mean, it is unwanted, right?
Yes,
And
it
it's
is
usually
unwanted.
aggressive.
Yes, but bullying is a form of abuse. It is a form of trauma, and it's a form of harassment as well. If you look at stopbullying.gov, it gives you a wealth of information. And the government has been researching bullying with, doctors, social workers, psychiatrists for decades. And it's the same thing. The only thing is that they're very shy of saying bullying is illegal in the workplace. And the idea behind that, according to the government, is that they're unable to tie it to a protected class. But if you look
Mm.
at sexual harassment, it is not tied to a protective class. Sexual harassment is behavior based, and so is bullying.
Wow. Thank you so much for that information. So, how can, well, first of all, tell me how you became so passionate about this topic. Like, were you ever bullied?
That's a topic that I really cannot discuss at this present time. I will simply say that bullying is a passion of my heart. Around 2017 to 2018, I was diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Um, and I had to grapple with the idea how I had PTSD. Again, it's something that I cannot speak about at
Okay.
this present time. And working through that, I went into a very dark depression.
Mm.
As you know, being a quote unquote strong Black woman, sometimes in the Black culture, to have times of weakness or brokenness, you're seen as less than, or you're seen as weak. It's like we're not seen as human. We're always seen as superpower women, and we cannot break down. You can't have it. You can't have this time. You got to get over it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I went to the doctor. I knew I was having nightmares.
Oh,
I couldn't
wow.
sleep. I was having migraines that were uncontrollable, which I've had a history of migraines for a very long time, but these migraines wouldn't break. Just constantly sick. I couldn't keep my food down. Went to the doctor. I was diagnosed with PTSD. And when the lady first told me, I was like, "What? PTSD?" I was never in the military or never
Mm.
in war or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And she was like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, you were." And she described, what was going on with me. I didn't believe her, so I went and got a second opinion. And the second opinion, yes, you have PTSD and you're the acute chronic stage. That's when I learned that PTSD is in stages, and it's a
No.
lifelong mental health um, disorder. I don't like those words, disorders and
Right.
illness, but we're gonna use it medical terminology. And so yes, I was in the acute chronic stage. So as a result of that, and how I developed PTSD, I went into a dark depression. It was a
Oh,
very deep,
wow.
dark depression. I hit the depression. There was only a few people I could talk to, because any type of mental health matter, there's usually a stigma that
Hmm.
is tied to it, because people don't talk about emotions and mental health. We don't talk about the brain because we don't understand it. So there's a lot I had
Right.
to learn. When I was in that depression, I came across a picture of this child. Her name was Mallory Grossman, out of New Jersey. And
Hmm.
she was a 12-year-old child, beautiful. She had on this green cheerleading outfit with this beautiful green and yellow bow in her head. And I saw the caption, 12-year-old New Jersey child dies from bullying. And so
Wow.
yeah, and then I started to like Google and see more. I'm like, I'm seeing children that are dying as a result of being bullied for suicide. And if you Google it, I mean, one child is too many to me.
I agree.
But it's just, and it's across the world. It's not just
Yeah.
in America, it's across the world. And so that's when I developed the passion for children. And I have a way of speaking with children because I speak with them because I understand it. I've been there.
Right.
And I understand being depressed, what it feels like. I'm able to speak with them in a way that I can reach them. And that's when I started speaking with the state legislators. Like, we have laws in schools, but they're just not good enough. They are not strong enough. But there are
Yeah.
no bullying laws in California and or federal in the workplace. And there are no federal anti-bullying laws for school, for
So
the
we'll
school
get
system.
into more of that, but I'm just really interested in this because as a child I was bullied, right?
Okay.
And I was bullied, and I'm a seasoned lady.
Yeah.
I've been around a few trips around the moon.
Right.
But as a child, I was a teenager, and I was being bullied by the some kids that I went to school with, and it was disappointing for me. And it's funny because when I tell people this story, they don't really believe me.
Mhm.
So I find that interesting. So I'm sure you probably have situations where people don't believe that a person is being bullied. But I was being bullied because I used to be chubby.
Mhm.
And before I went to high school, I lost a lot of weight, and I went to high school thin. And the girl started to harass me a lot. She thinks she's cute. She thinks she's this. And I was just harassed all the time on the bus every day. And so that impacted me for years, like years. So I want to know, how can you recognize signs of bullying in yourself? Maybe you might be a bully, or in other people.
The person is usually withdrawn to some point. They tend to usually isolate. Introvert. They usually don't make eye contact because there's so much pain. If we carry our pain in our eyes, our eyes are like the eyeglasses and or the vision to where you can see what's in a person's soul and what
Yes.
they're going to. So they usually don't look at you with eye contact because they don't want you to see that pain that's in them. They're not ready to actually talk about it, or it's just too deep to express. But you can see it, sometimes they're really aggressive. So the person that is being bullied, usually takes that energy and then they will go and show that bullying aggression towards someone else. So he's like, you see the person that's having outbursts, like out of nowhere. Where do you start having these outbursts and stuff? There's usually a change in behavior. Sometimes the person's having problems sleeping. There's anxiety, there's anxiousness, especially with children. A child that's being bullied, they don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
They don't want to wake up. They don't want to go to school to the next day. They're usually very, very anxious. They only get usually a few hours where they can calm down, because if when you have anxiety and panic attacks, it takes a couple of hours for you to wind down from that. So you
Mm-hmm.
figure by the time they go to sleep, they've wound down. By the time they wake up in the morning, that anxiety, it just kicks in naturally because you're going to a place that's a hostile place.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Because, as of course, this show is about personality. So it's talking about personalities as it relates to relationships.
Mhm.
And so I'd like to always introduce how the personality matters to the topic, right? Or how it's related to the topic. So, as you said, that sometimes you'll be able to see a person's personality change, right?
Yes.
So I'm an outgoing person, right? I'm an extrovert. In some cases, I may be a sanguine or a choleric. And I'm usually talkative and bubbly and outgoing, or just involved, and people, know who I am because I'm that kind of person. Then all of a sudden I retreat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or I'm a high achiever.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden my grades start to suffer.
Mhm.
Those are clues that maybe there's some bullying or something going on. As an introvert, if I'm already an introvert, I'm already quiet and to myself, because phlegmatics normally they stare at people, but they don't really look people in the eyes.
Mhm.
But if I'm a phlegmatic, I may withdraw even more than I used to. I may sleep more than I used to. I
Mhm.
may not want to go around my small group of friends, right? If I'm a melancholies take everything so personally. And so if they're being bullied, they believe the stuff that's being said to them. And they really withdraw and they become, um, they don't want to be around anybody.
Mhm.
And there'll be the kids that say, I don't want to go to school, I'm not happy, they'll just cry and keep to themselves. So I just like to show the connection between the personalities in this bullying, because it is a big deal. Like, you have to really recognize the things that your children are going through, but also, as I said earlier, I thought it was really related to children and not really thinking about the relationship in as adults, and
Mhm.
how adults could be bullied,
Mhm.
and how that could probably show up in attendance issues, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Or productivity issues. So, you having a productive person, a person who works a lot, work long hours, and all of a sudden they're not working as much. They are, their work is suffering, their work is not as accurate. So yeah, so I just kind of wanted to draw that connection. So what can be, because it sounds like, based on what I was hearing from you, what can be some of the long-term effects of bullying on our mental health?
Trauma. So anytime there's any kind of trauma, it's going to come out at some point in time. And
Mm-hmm.
so what has happened with bullying and trauma has become a legacy. It is a time capsule. And so when it's not addressed at some point in your life, it is going to just explode. Our children have become
Yeah.
time capsules. And sometimes when you're bullied as a child, you carry that into your adult life, and then you become a person that bullies
Mm.
when you are grown, whether it is your family, friends, loved
Mm.
ones, colleagues of some sort. It is a time capsule, and it is abuse. It's abuse that is not addressed, and anything left undressed can always go rogue. And when I say go rogue, you just go Donkey Kong. Sometimes you go Donkey Kong one day, you look up and you don't know it's the trauma that you've never dealt with. And if you look at
Yes.
it, trauma always leads at some point, unaddressed trauma will always at some point lead to a mental health matter.
I love that. I love that you drew that connection, because I always say, um, if you don't deal with what's eating you, if you don't deal with what's hurting you,
Mhm.
or deal with the situation will deal with you, right?
That's right.
So if you don't deal with it, you don't manage it, you don't handle it when you're younger, or your parents don't get you the kind of help that you need, or your guardians when you're younger,
Mhm.
this stuff will deal with you. It'll come back and haunt you until you deal with it.
Mhm.
So that is really important. And it is trauma. I mean, I think about how it impacted me as a young person. It definitely impacted my grades.
Yes.
And my parents saw that, and they transferred me because of that, out of the school from the kids I grew up with. They were friends of mine, I
Mhm.
thought. But they, and that's the thing I think we need to make sure that people understand the impact, the long lasting trauma. I ran
Mhm.
into that girl, one of the girls that traumatized me the most on the bus. I ran into her when I was an adult. I probably was my late 20s.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I saw her, I had like knots in my stomach.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I still felt sick when
Yeah.
I saw her.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize just how much that still impacted me after all those years. And I was a teenager when it all happened. I was 14, 15 years old.
Mhm.
So I just think that's interesting. All right. So if we find that somebody has suffered bullying, how can we support them and help them through, it not becoming a mental health challenge?
We can offer encouragement. Most of the children that I speak with that do attempt to take their lives, and I ask them why, they say, I didn't feel like I was being heard. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like anyone was hearing me. Children want to be heard. And so coming in and speaking with them, letting them know that they did nothing wrong, because the person that is being bullied, that person tends to think that that he or she has actually done something wrong. It's like the person that is in a relationship and their husband or wife is actually beating them, abusing them. That person feels guilt that they have done something wrong. So the
Right.
child that is being bullied will think that they have done something wrong, or there's something wrong with them. Now
Mm.
the child that is actually bullying, there's something that's going on in that child within themselves, whether it's in the home, outside of the home. There's something that's going on where they are transferring that negative energy
Yeah.
onto someone else. And so how we can do, be there, offer an ear, offer to for them to listen without judgment, because we tend to judge a lot, because there is this stigma that is
Yeah.
tied to bullying. There's a
Right.
stigma that's tied to trauma.
Right.
Listen without judgment, give advice, and encourage medical help, and also encourage self help.
I,
We can start by letting our children know it's okay to speak about their feelings, emotions. We live in a world where we tell boys not to cry, and we tell
yes.
girls be strong. So
Hmm.
they don't know how to express themselves.
And I think that is really a big deal as it relates to boys, especially because you're right. We tell them, you shouldn't cry or express your emotions. And then we're mad when we find out something's going on with them. I honestly know, and we've heard this before, hurt people hurt people.
Mhm.
So if a child is a bully, it's because they're going through something that they need some help and assistance with. And so I think it's important not to just discard a bully, but to understand how they got there and how to get them away from that type of behavior. And because I don't think even children who are bullies recognize that they're actually doing that. Like I could tell you, even back in my day, which I said I'm a seasoned person, so that's way back in the
That's
day.
a start.
But even back in my day, there was a lot of joking and stuff that we would do, your mama this, your mama that, type of joking. But some of that stuff, people don't know what you're dealing with at home, and they don't know what your life is like.
Mhm.
And so they can strike a chord that is damaging
Right.
to another person.
Right. And then we actually called it sigging and capping. That's what we call it, sigging and capping. Oh, we capping and doing that. And you really don't know.
No.
And there was actually a person back in high school that we actually bullied this person. And in my older years, and then when you look at it at the time, you see it as like joking. But if you're speaking about somebody against something that is something physical that is wrong with them, or something mentally that's wrong, that is actually bullying. The
Yeah.
person said stop, we need to stop. So it was years later, in recent years, where God placed it on my heart, like, you were part of bullying with this person, you need to
Right.
apologize. And I
Right.
did. And she was like, oh wow, like, you really? I'm like, yeah, I'm realizing that that was actually bullying and it was wrong. So we have
Yeah.
to call people out on it.
I
We have to
agree.
come
I
back.
totally agree because
Yeah,
you can't correct what you don't know,
you can't
right?
correct what you don't know.
What you
Yes.
don't know. And
Right.
I can tell you that, okay, so of the four personalities, all four personalities would be impacted by bullying in one way or another, right?
Yes.
A sanguine personality, we want everybody to love us. So we get really impacted if you say something negative to us or
Mhm.
about us.
Mhm.
It really is, it could be a lifelong situation that not only have you said that thing about me,
Mhm.
but now is it true about me? Can I, do I need to take that in? Is that really me? Then I start to believe it's me and I start to act accordingly, right?
Right. Mhm.
The choleric personality tends to be the bully
Mm.
because they're born leaders and they're people who are very harsh in how they communicate. Even when they don't try to be bullies, they can come off as bullies
Right.
because they're very authoritative in how they communicate and stuff like that. The
Mhm.
melancholy personality, they're very smart, right? They get very wounded very easily. So their feelings get hurt very easily. So you could say something that you may not even bully the person, but they feel bullied because they may have heard that before from other people, right?
Right.
And then the phlegmatic is the personality that probably gets bullied the most because they won't say anything. They won't rise up and fight against it. They're the cool, calm, collected personality style that would rather dismiss than to engage.
Right.
So I just think it's interesting that this bullying has such an impact on all the four personality styles. But let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
If you've been a victim of bullying, like you've had some emotional impacts, what strategies can we come up with that can help people cope?
Um, God, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. So there are
Amen.
certain platforms where I cannot speak on Jesus, and I understand that, you know.
This is not one of them.
Yeah, so Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I know for certain I would not have made it through PTSD if I did not have a faith in God. And I don't even know if it was a strong faith, because Jesus says all you need is the faith of a mustard seed, and a mustard seed is about this small here, and my faith grew. But having a strong spiritual base, I knew that with God I could do anything.
Yes.
So I did that. I was surrounded by a team of doctors. I had a primary doctor, I had a mental health therapist, and I had a psychiatrist. And the reason for the mental health therapist is because usually a psychiatrist will see you once a month. They prescribe whatever medication is needed, and they'll see you once a month. That mental health therapist is a person that's going to hold your hand and walk you through that process. You usually see that person once a week. That person is where you're going to be opening up to, and that'll help you through each step.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, how you eat, the food that you eat. There are certain foods that can trigger anxiety. Sugar.
Okay. I'm
Sugar
off
would make
sugar.
it'll make your anxiety just go crazy.
Yeah.
Just sugar alone, and you're already in that place. Also, eating leafy green veggies, fruits, and just staying as grounded as possible as you can, knowing that it is a season and that you will come out of it. You have to
Oh,
be able to
yes.
see the other side of it, you know, and you have
Yes.
to, and that's usually, I take that back. You have to be able to see yourself on the other side of it.
Yes.
And if you can't, sometimes people stay in there. One of my doctors told me, like, she was actually, it took me 3 years and 5 months, PTSD, 3 years and 5 months, where she
Wow.
said, I'm gonna check you off. You are okay. You probably would have to come see me again in the future, but you are okay at this point. 3 years and 5 months of my life. So it's
Yes.
being patient with yourself.
I love
Because
that.
if you're one of those personalities and you're a high achiever and you're used to bouncing back quick, you will bully yourself
Oh, come on,
because
sis.
you feel that you're supposed to be in X place when it's like, no, be kind to yourself.
I
Be
love it.
kind to yourself. And nature is a natural healer.
Yes.
Nature.
I
And
love that. I love
then,
all of the tips that you gave, and as I said, you said there's some places you can't come and talk about Jesus. I recognize that well. I tell people this is not a spiritual show, but be willing and open because I am a spiritual person. I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior. So don't be offended if you come here, to hear that because I don't limit my guests in bringing that up because if that is a part of your healing, then that's a part that could help somebody else as well. But in
yes.
addition to that, I'm happy that I had you on the show for a multitude of reasons. One of the reasons is because Black people really run away from therapy or any kind of therapies, right?
Hmm.
And so to hear somebody, not only are you Black, but a Christian,
Hmm.
okay, who can say, when you need mental health, get mental health,
Right.
and don't be afraid to seek the help you need because Jesus is always number one in our lives, right? So we're
Hmm.
always going to go to the source first. But God created therapists for a reason. He
That's right.
created doctors for a reason.
Hmm.
So he will utilize them as well. So I'm just really excited that you're talking about this, because so many Christians will think, oh, no, I would never go see a psychiatrist or a
Yeah.
psychologist or a mental
Yeah.
health professional.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you should. If you need
Right.
one, do that. So
Right.
thank you for at least being a voice to that, and and understanding that some people might need an extra support system in their arsenal in order to get
Absolutely.
through what they're going through. So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And you need at least one or two people that you can be transparent with. At one part of my healing, I felt that, again, I come from a family of strong Black women. And so this is in no negative stain or mark against the women in my family. Um, they didn't want me to be sick. They didn't want me to have that time that I needed to actually be sick. I was not well, so it was like, there is nothing wrong with you. You're okay. You can do this. You can do that. We're strong in this family. We don't let nobody hold us down. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to deal with PTSD. I'm learning, and like I tell people all the time, learn about your brain. My doctors they gave me homework. And part of my homework was learning how my brain works. And your brain is designed to protect you. So
Yes.
when you're in flee and flight and all of that, you don't understand what's going on. Your brain is protecting. You have to talk to yourself to be able to calm yourself down. And sometimes you have to just distance yourself so that you can get the necessary healing that you need. But it's
Yes.
okay. It is okay, because what happens is family members, they start to actually bully you because
Yes.
you are not feeling well. I am going through a season, but give me this space. I know I'm strong. Independent is a word that I no longer use because my dependency is on Jesus. I do not believe in independent people. My
Yes.
dependency is upon Him. Right now, I'm having a very difficult time. So I didn't really have many people that I can actually talk to. But the crazy part about it is, had I called somebody and said I have cancer, there would have been study groups. I would have had food at my house.
Right.
We would have had healing circles, everything. But you tell somebody I have PTSD, post
Girl,
traumatic
you better
stress
get over
syndrome.
that. That
Yeah.
ain't of
Are
God.
you crazy?
That
What's
ain't of
wrong with you?
God.
What's going on? My brain
Yeah.
is injured,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So we have to do better, especially
Yes.
in the Black community, in the Black culture. We can't see it as crazy.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. And
You're
and
welcome.
that leads into my next question. How can we promote a culture? And I said the word culture, a
Mhm.
culture of kindness and respect to prevent bullying in the home, at school, in the workplace, wherever.
Mhm. So I'm also an emotional intelligence coach. I'm coined the EI bestie. And so I teach emotional intelligence. And so I teach it in a way that's fun. It is interactive, and teaching people how to never let their emotions overpower their intelligence. Teaching that purposeful pause, teaching them how to slow that in that pause to allow logic to catch up to the emotions and feelings,
Yeah.
because sometimes emotions is here, logic is here, and so that purpose, give me time so they can catch up to each other, so that no matter what, and I understand that hurt people hurt, and to be
Yeah.
honest with you, I am sick and tired of that phrase. It bothers me because we say it all the time, so we're perpetuating. I say hurt people heal, because
Mm.
I won't hurt people to heal. Because when you don't hurt it, when you're hurting, you're easily to transfer it. So
Yes.
acknowledge, I'm hurting. I have no problem telling people I'm hurting right now. I'm going through some things right now. I have no problem. And I teach that to children. It's okay to speak about your emotions, but that's something that we don't do with children. We don't speak about our emotions. As adults, we don't even deal with like our emotions. Everybody wants to know, how is rampant running crazy? How is bullying running crazy? I tell people, we have given bullying a passport to
Mm.
just do whatever and do whatever to actually destroy our children. And reason being is we have not taught them how to deal with emotions and how to talk about emotions. Why? Because adults do not deal with emotions and they don't talk about
Yeah, but it's
emotions.
even more than that because there's certain personalities that are closed off, right?
Mhm,
There's certain personalities that are wide open. My personality, for instance, I'll tell
mhm.
you everything. There are people I recently met, probably know more about me than, probably knows more about me than they should.
Right. Right, right, right.
Right? Because I'm very open with how I feel and I will tell you how I feel, right?
Mhm,
And with the choleric personality, that's I'm a sanguine. With the
mhm.
choleric personality, you don't have a need to know about how they feel, right?
Right.
Because if you hurt them, they're going to hurt you back anyway.
Mhm,
For a melancholy personality, they're very closed off, and whatever they're going through is very personal, and they're very reluctant to share it with anyone. So they will be the kind of people that want to look like the life is perfect,
mhm,
but it's a disaster behind the scenes.
mhm.
And phlegmatics, they don't even want to talk, let alone, let talk, period, or for any reason, unless they really need to. And that has to be a pressing need because they would prefer to listen and not talk. So
Right.
each personality would actually deal with how they communicate their feelings differently and for
Mhm.
different reasons. So it really makes a difference how we address bullying for each of the personality styles,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and I just gave one challenge as to the question I'm going to ask you, which is, what are some of the challenges in addressing bullying and mental health at a societal level? And I addressed the personality ones. So, tell me, what are some of the other issues or challenges?
People just don't want to talk about it. Um, it's like one of my slogans is silent voices speak, and I actually have that trademarked. And it's where people just do not want to talk about it. They wanted to just brush it under the rug. I know a lot of school districts, no one wants to talk about it. Bullying doesn't happen here. I'm like, bullying happens everywhere.
Yeah,
So the idea is prevention. You know, if we could sit down and talk to children and understand that they should be accountable for their words and for their behavior. And you can talk to kids. Kids are not as fragile as you think they are.
right.
Kids are resilient. We can teach that to our children, how to be resilient. You're either going to have trauma that's going to be resilient, or you're going to have your strength and your inner superpower that's
Yeah.
going to be resilient. But it's being open, talking about it, communication.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I mean, I'm hearing you with this. My son is a principal of a school in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and he sent privately something to us to show us a parent reacting in a certain way and in front of a child,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was aggressive. It was very
Yes.
aggressive. And so I'm thinking, like, our children are learning this aggressive behavior
Mm-hmm.
from their parents. And some
Yes.
of the parents are very young, okay? But they're learning how to speak to adults in a certain way. They're learning how to speak to each other in a certain way. So this is really a big deal to me. It's a big deal. How do we reach people who really don't know how to speak to each other and don't know how to speak to their children and don't know, what I'm saying? How do we reach people like that? Because that's a big deal to
Because
me.
we teach them how to handle their emotions.
Yeah.
It's something that you sit down and talk about it. We have to have classes. We have to have training on that. And it's not really training in per se, education.
Yeah.
awareness. We have to sit down and talk about it. Social emotional learning. A lot of school districts do not even have those in their schools where they can sit down and talk about it. I sat down with an administrator a couple of weeks ago and
Hmm.
spoke with this person, and it's just the pain that our children are in, and you can see it. I'm mental health first aid certified as well for the youth, which is great because now I'm a mandated reporter.
Mm.
And that's good. And I think teachers should also be mental health first aid certified. Need to be mandated reporters. They're mandated reporters for abuse in other areas, but they should also be mandated reporters for when it comes to bullying. But you
Oh.
have to know how to take a situation, and you have to know how to and lessen that situation. But you address people. If the parent is in there cutting up like that, you address them in the most kindest way possible. But what I've learned, when you keep your emotions calm, people tend to come down to where you are when you stay calm. So as long as I stay calm, people tend to come down and stay calm to me. And back in the day, I used to do the fool. You understand? So it was like, so when people see me being calm, they're like, what is going on with Linda? I used to do the fool. And it's recognizing in you, there is a fool in all of us.
Yeah.
There's a king and fool in all of us. There's a queen, there's a fool in all of us. But whenever I would say really 3 times, I would go Donkey Kong. If I have to say really to you 3 times, you are disrespecting me, Donkey Kong, and I would just blow up. These days, I don't allow myself to get to that
Yeah.
dirt, really. And I notice that I'm responsible for my behavior and how I respond. I cannot control anybody else,
Right.
I
Right.
can adjust my presence, but I teach people and children, you are responsible for your words and action. And your words are just like it is just like a bullet. It's just like a vehicle
Hmm.
driving of some
Hmm.
vessel. You can harm somebody, and that stays in that person's mind. Sometimes forever, and people don't bounce back. So we have to teach people to be accountable. You have to understand the generation under us, that's who's going to be leading this country in
Whew,
a
Lord.
couple of years.
Some of them are just amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, I have met some of the most amazing young people,
Mhm.
but I've also met some that could use some of this training that you speak of. But also, we talked about that in in education environment, like schools and stuff like that. But in the workplace, is there some kind of curriculum that people can use that will help them with this in the workplace?
Well,
Because
I know.
I don't think adults see it as bullying. I think they say harassment or whatever, but I don't think they really see it as bullying. And I think it's important for them to be able to identify what the behavior truly is and address it.
Right. Now, I know in California you have sexual harassment training. I believe it's a 4-hour training, and to my knowledge, there's a piece of that training that is focused on bullying in the workplace. So they are aware that bullying is there. So they understand it, but it's also having, I always say, when school administrators and employers fail to take corrective action
Hmm.
to have effective solutions to intervene, what happens is the system that's designed to protect creates a hostile work environment for people to suffer injuries.
Wow. Okay.
So when you're in a certain level, and this also goes for like people, students, employees, you speak up. You have to speak up as well, and you have to address it. If we can start talking about bullying, the more you talk about something, what happens to it? It shrinks and
Hmm.
lessens. So the power, what actually makes bullying so powerful right now is nobody wants to really talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about prevention and awareness. Take the power from bullying. Talk about it.
So
Address it.
I think initially what happened is that it was a whole lot of talk about bullying, and people were calling people bullies, and I think that's a big word. You shouldn't be using that word and da da da. I think that it's almost swept under the rug now. It's actually I think it was so much talk at one point. You know how you get desensitized when people talk
Mhm.
about it, but nobody was talking about the awareness or education aspect of it, but calling people bullies. So it became
Mhm.
like nobody's talking about it at all. It's now we sweep it all under the rug. So I
Right.
think it needs to be readdressed in another way.
Because it,
Um,
it, it became a who instead of a what. It is
mhm,
behavior. It is behavior focused. It is behavior addressed. And if we can come from it from that standpoint, and it needs to be stricter laws in the school district. Parents need to be held accountable. If a child does something and they're under the age of 18, the parents should be held accountable for that. Mallory Grossman's mom, Diane Grossman out of New Jersey. She is this beautiful woman. I've spoken with her before. And she actually, New Jersey has the strictest anti bullying laws out there, but parents
wow.
can get fined. And it is not much, but it's just to get the attention, you know? And so
Hmm.
we need laws in California like that all around the world, actually. And we need federal laws. You're like, that's just like right now, if I was to go run a stop sign and I hit somebody else's car and I harm that person,
Hmm.
depending on the level of harm, I could be arrested, right? Or
Hmm.
I could be charged with something, right? I'm
Hmm.
not saying we want to create prisoners in children. At the same time, they need to understand their egregious behavior. And
Mm,
harming someone mentally is the same as harming that person physically.
so
And it
true.
needs and they need to be held accountable.
I agree. Okay, so we talked about that and about because I think accountability is a big piece of it. Um, that we do need to hold people accountable, but we also need to recognize that if it's a child that's bullying, there's a reason for it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes bullying can really come from abuse in the household. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm.
But I want to know, how can we work together to create a more compassionate and understanding society that values mental health and our, and the mental health and our well-being.
And that's a good question. I believe America's been asking that question since probably the beginning of time, but
Right,
definitely mental
right.
health became a huge platform in America after Vietnam.
Yeah.
When the vets came back and many had got addicted to heroin and
Oh
things like
yeah.
that, and the mental health kind of came. So that's something again in America where we have to sit down. We need a group, legislators, social workers, therapists, teachers, administrators come together and they have to draft policy program. Start grassroots. Talk to the kids. What is it that they would like to see in the school district? What would they like to see different? What type of protection? But you have to understand, children are mandated to go to school, right?
Hmm.
Parents, adults, we go to work so we can provide for our families. So you have the workplaces, school districts, places where we have to go, right?
Hmm.
But these places should be safe as well. They should not be hostile
Right.
environments. So
That's
you're
right.
mandating a child to actually go to an environment that's toxic and that's hostile. And mind you, in California, a hostile work environment is illegal, but
Mhm.
bullying is. So let's start making it make sense.
Right.
Make it make sense. Let's make it
Right.
make sense. A
Right.
hostile environment is illegal, but bullying is legal.
Yeah. That's
Let's make it make
bananas.
sense. So let's sit down and start talking about policy. Let's sit down school district by school district. Let's sit down and talk about it. But children, if they understand that there is some consequence in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
children are smart. They
Yes.
understand there's a consequence. They're not going to do it as much. You're going to have less and you're going to deal with prevention. But children are great. If you sit down and tell a child, hey, that's wrong, the effects of that is X, Y, and Z, children catch on.
I love it. Okay, so when I had my radio show, I used to do this thing called Personality Points to Ponder.
Mhm.
And so I would take whatever the topic is and give you a couple of personality points, right?
Mhm.
And so I want to do that. And if you want to comment on these, please do.
Okay.
So let's talk about the sanguine. Sanguine's personalities tend to have no filter from their brains to their mouths. So we think it, we say it without filtering out the stuff, right?
Right.
So if we are dealing with a sanguine person, one of the ways we can help them is to show them how they can understand the feelings and perspectives of other people, right? But also emphasizing the importance of treating everyone with kindness and respect because we're big jokesters. And
Hmm.
so sometimes we tend to joke when it can be very hurtful to someone.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's for our sanguine personality. You have any thoughts about that before I move on to the next?
A purposeful pause. They need to understand the purposeful pause.
Yeah.
Slow down before you start talking because your words are like a bullet
Love it.
and
Love
it's
it.
traveling. Purposeful pause, like me. When I get to that second, really, I need to end this conversation because if I get to that third, really, it's going to be on and cracking.
I
So
love
it's
it.
teaching them to understand the purposeful pause. And that pause is so beautiful because you are growing. Anytime you're allowing logic to catch up to your emotions, you are growing in that space and you're learning self discipline and self control. And at
Okay.
some point in time, hey, we are to mature in Christ. And at some point in time, you just doing the fool and acting the fool. It is not a good look.
Right.
You know, children are actually watching you, adults are
They're
watching you.
watching you.
It ain't a good look. You should be held accountable and responsible for yourself. So, purposeful pause would be great for them,
For
knowing
the
when to,
sanguine. Okay.
yeah,
So
knowing when
let's
to pause and let everything catch up.
I know that's right. All right, so let's talk about the choleric personality. They're born leaders, movers, and shakers. Sometimes the choleric comes off as abrasive and curt in their communication. But we can help choleric individuals recognize their emotions because they can get really angry and they will take it out on somebody. We can encourage them to be more empathetic and considerate towards their peers, discouraging any tendencies towards aggression and domination because they tend to dominate, right?
Mhm,
People and conversations,
mhm,
and they tend to come off as aggressive even if they don't mean it.
mhm, mhm.
So, your thoughts?
Empathy, like you
Okay.
said,
All right.
empathy, and that's for everybody. Empathy. Put
Okay.
yourself in the other person's shoes, and how would you like that? And usually, those people like that, especially in the workplace, they don't want to delegate because everybody does it like them. Everybody got one person in the workplace that's like that, where they let you know quarterly, this place would be nothing without me. This ship
Uh-huh.
won't sail unless I'm on it. So it's just letting them know. Teaching people community. We have to get back to community. So empathy and community.
All right, so melancholy personalities are deep thinkers. They're very compassionate, but they're also super, super sensitive. Like you can hurt their feelings with the slightest comment or conversation. So
Mhm.
we have to encourage resilience with the melancholy. So we can help a melancholy individual develop resilience to handle negative situations because we're all going to have negative
Right.
situations. We need to teach them techniques to cope with bullying, such as seeking support from trusted individuals, somebody you trust, somebody you know is going to keep your confidence or help you to navigate the situation, or
Mhm.
engaging in activities that promote their mental well-being.
Mhm.
Any
Um,
thoughts?
Teach them not to be easily offended. And that's in the word. Offense is going to happen. Being offended is a choice.
Yes.
And so you don't have to receive what people actually tell you. When it comes to like children, like my oldest daughter, when she was young and she had glasses, I've been wearing glasses since seventh grade for the most part. I knew what the children were going to tell her. They was going to tell her four eyes and you can see into the
Ah,
future and all these things. I prepared her for that. So as parents, before our children leave, we know the quirkiness in our children,
yes,
right?
yes,
They
yes,
came from us. So
yes.
in that quirkiness, you want to talk to your child. You're beautiful. This makes you unique. We have to build them up in that area that is quirky. So I was able to tell my daughter, they're gonna say four eyes, they're gonna say you can see the future, they're gonna probably grab your glasses to the long as no one hits you, anything like that. Just know that your glasses are beautiful, you're beautiful in your glasses. So when she came home and they had teased her, she didn't even feed into it. Like, Mom, they told me I had four eyes and this and that and that and this. It didn't even bother me. So it's learning also, just teaching them not to be easily offended.
Love it.
Again, offense is going to happen. It is
Yes.
inevitable, but you choose to be offended.
All right. The fourth and final personality style is the phlegmatic. The phlegmatic is cool, calm, collected, but they don't like any kind of confrontation or conflict or anything like that. So one of the ways to help them is to teach them assertiveness skills. Phlegmatics may need guidance in developing assertiveness to stand up against bullying because they'll just ignore it.
Mhm.
Help them recognize their own worth,
Mhm.
which is what you just said, and teach them how to assert their boundaries firmly but respectfully. So you had just pretty much covered that. That's what you taught your daughter
That's
how
right.
to do. I thank
Yes.
you so much for being a part of Personality Speaking.
Thank you.
What is on the horizon for you?
On the horizon for me, I have a comprehensive bullying program that's going to be coming out for school districts, workplace, emotional intelligence. I'm so happy to do that. I'll be writing my next book, Five Bullying Behaviors Hidden in Plain Sight, where you see bullying and we don't even know it, but it
Wow.
exists. And we see it as normalcy, but it's not. It is bullying. And speaking with the children, coaching, getting back out there, talking to the kids again, getting into their heads and hopefully getting into their hearts so that we can actually tackle bullying on.
I
We
love
have to do
it.
something. We have to save our children because if not, bullying is going to consume them. And you have to
Yes.
understand it's going to follow them into adulthood. And we want happy, whole, rounded individuals. That's the goal.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Now, how can people reach out to you and get your books that you've written that's on Amazon? And if you have a website, we certainly want to be able to put that out there so people can reach out to you.
The books are on Amazon. They're on Barnes and Noble as well, and the website is actually being worked on right now. The books for my website, that's poetryinempathy.com, and the website for Silent Voices Speak, that's going to be up hopefully within a week or so.
So that's Poetry in Infancy.
.com.
Okay. All right. I'm putting it out there. I'll put it out on our YouTube page to make sure people can find it. I'm
Okay.
so thankful that you joined us this week on Personality Speaking because we're here to try to help people build healthier, stronger relationships through their
Yes.
understanding of our personalities.
Yes.
And your topic really helped people to understand the connection between personalities and
Yes.
bullying prevention. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Such a blessing. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all for joining Personality Speaking. Next week, we're going to be talking about personalities and marriage, from singleness to
Mm.
marriage. And we're going to have men, all men. It's going to be the men's edition of Personality Speaking. So I can't wait for next week to come. So next week, join us at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Personality Speaking, where we're helping you develop your personality through the understanding of personalities, you guys.
Yeah.
So thank you, audience, for sharing. If you have any comments, please post them, and I'll go back and I'll add the any responses to it. My guest will also, if you have any questions for her, she will go in and add her comments as well. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Personality Speaking. Take care,
Thank
you
you.
guys. Thank you.
Bye bye.